Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my bright, sunny garden this morning. My plans for today are to finally fertilize my roses. It is time. It is mid-March, and for me, that means it's time to fertilize my roses here in Northern California, Zone 9B. I'll show you how you can tell when it's time to fertilize your roses in just a second. Roses are super heavy feeders, and so that means that they need the right balance of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to make sure that they can grow really strong, nice and sturdy, bloom a ton for you, and most importantly, be able to resist diseases and pests attacking them throughout the season. So there are so many different ways to fertilize your roses. If you Google on the internet, search on the internet how to fertilize your roses, you're gonna find a million different recommendations. And I think most of them are really great. Luckily with my job, I get to talk to a lot of gardening experts and a ton of rosarians, which are rose experts. And I have learned a way to fertilize my roses that I consider to be magic, which is why it's called the Van Winden's Magic Mix. It's also called the Van Winden's Secret Mix, or also Gary's Mix. Gary is the gentleman that invented this mix for Van Winden's. Van Winden's is a beautiful garden center in Napa, California. If you ever have a chance to go visit, I would highly recommend going to visit. It's just one of those like those classic garden centers. It's just absolutely fantastic. So here are the three ingredients that make up the Van Winden's Magic Mix or Secret Mix. First of all, we have something called alfalfa meal, and alfalfa meal has long been known to be a growth stimulant basically for roses. Actually, my grandmother, I was telling you guys how there's a million different ways to fertilize your roses. My grandmother actually uses alfalfa meal pellets, and she spreads those all over, and then as she waters her roses, they kind of work in, and her roses are absolutely beautiful. So alfalfa meal contains a good source of nitrogen. You can see that right there. That's NPK. So a good source of nitrogen. And then it also has this magic ingredient. It's a natural source of a magic ingredient called triacontanol. It's like steroids for roses, basically. It helps promote growth. It helps promote strong stems. It helps with drought tolerance because it improves the uptake of not only water, but also nutrients. It is just the best stuff for roses. And like I said, alfalfa meal is a natural source of this triacontanol, so it's great to use that. And this is probably why the Magic Mix is mainly comprised of alfalfa meal. It's a cup of alfalfa meal. Then we have something called Sol-Po-Mag, which is sulfur, potash, and magnesium. It's a little bit difficult to find. I will tell you guys this one is a little bit difficult to find, but once you find it, you're going to be good because you only need 2 tablespoons per recipe. So it'll last you a really long time. And this just helps promote really strong stems, and then also deep color of your roses, which is the most important part, right? And then finally, you probably all recognize this. This is just a natural organic rose fertilizer. Not brand specific. You can use whatever brand. The only thing that's important is this recipe is for organic rose fertilizer as opposed to synthetic rose fertilizer. The reason why I'm focusing on organic is because organic is a slow release formula. It's going to slowly release its nutrients over time to that rose, which is really going to help that rose continue growing and continue going strong until you fertilize it again. So the amounts for one batch of the Van Winden's Rose Mix are 1 cup of alfalfa meal, and you can see I'm using a measuring cup right now, but I have to be honest, I never use a measuring cup. I just reach in with a gloved hand and just kind of throw it and just make sure I have a close amount of ratios. But for the video, I'm going to use a measuring cup. So 1 cup of alfalfa meal, 1/2 cup of organic rose fertilizer, and then 2 tablespoons of the Sol-Po-Mag. And then you're going to mix that all together, and this is the amount for 1 rose. Now, I always say that, but when I have a little baby rose that maybe I just planted last fall or something like that, it doesn't need all of that. So maybe if I have a baby rose, I'll do 1/2 of this and 1/2 on another baby rose. But if you have a full-grown rose, a mature rose, use all of this on 1 rose. So I used to fertilize my roses once a month, and that is when I used just a basic organic rose fertilizer, just that, nothing else. And that seemed to work really well. However, I did tend to forget a lot to fertilize every single month. I wasn't really good at it. So because this is like turbocharged with the Sulpo Mag and the alfalfa meal, I feel like you don't have to fertilize as much. Now, you're not going to over fertilize because all of this stuff is organic, so it's not like you're going to burn your roses, but you also don't want to waste a product. So the way to know in the spring, you want to fertilize in the spring, right when they're waking up. The way to know that it's time to fertilize is you want to look at the new growth on your roses. And if once you notice 3 to 6 inches of new growth, then it's time, it's time to start fertilizing your roses. So for us, that's usually around March, mid-March, and it's mid-March right now, and you can see I have about 3 to 6 inches of new growth on my roses. Then after your first application, you're gonna have a big, beautiful show of blooms, and it's gonna be gorgeous, and then that's gonna fade away. Right after it fades away, then it's time to fertilize again, because you want that rose bush to produce even more blooms later on in the season. So once right when it's waking up with 3 to 6 inches of growth, a second time after your first flush of blooms, and then if you have a really long growing season, you can actually fertilize a third time mid-summer to keep everything going strong. But if you have a short growing season, you just want to make sure that you fertilize at least 6 weeks before your first frost. Now, those of us who live in a really hot climate, we do have to worry about how hot it gets. You do want to stop fertilizing once it gets really, really hot, maybe in like August, even maybe the end of July. You just kind of want to watch your weather. Once it starts getting that beating down summer where you don't even want to be outside, stop fertilizing your roses because you don't want any new growth. That new growth is just going to suffer in that heat. So that's when you want to pause if you are in a really hot climate. Okay, so now let's apply. So it's pretty simple to apply it. It only takes a couple of minutes per rose bush. First, you want to move back whatever mulch you have around the rose bush. And then you're gonna kind of scratch up that soil. I just like to use my hands. You want to scratch it all up so it's easier to incorporate the fertilizer into that soil. And by loosening the soil, you're just helping those nutrients reach the roots of the plant, the rose plant, that much faster. Okay, then you're going to evenly spread your Van Winden's Magic Mix all around that rose bush. Then you're going to use your hands again, or you can use a garden fork, and you're just going to scratch the mix into the soil. This is just going to help it integrate into the soil faster and make sure that those nutrients don't wash away. Finally, you're going to water it completely in just to activate all of that yummy stuff in the mix. And again, get it down to the rose's roots. And that's it. So I've got one rose down. I think I have 13 or 14 more roses around my property to go, which I feel like is a ton of roses. I'm trying not to plant any more roses this year just because I feel like that's a lot of roses. However, I know that there's a lot of very obsessed, crazy rose people out there. Admit it. So you have your work cut out for you fertilizing your roses and pruning back your roses. So I'm going to get to fertilizing the rest of my roses for spring. So it started raining. There was no rain on the forecast, but yeah, I think I'm gonna stop for today. I don't know how, it says it's supposed to rain at least for the next hour, and this all of a sudden just showed up. So yeah, I think I'm done fertilizing roses for the day. But hopefully you guys got the gist of it. Oh my God. The Van Winden's Magic Mix is absolutely fantastic. One recipe per rose, unless your rose is really small. And then think about doing it about 3 times a year. Around this time, oh my gosh, around this time in the spring, again after the first flush of blooms, and then a 3rd time midsummer. So anyway, I guess I'll be putting this off to another day. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today. Okay, now it's hailing. Ah! Did you stand right in front? Oh my God! Did you stand right in front of the camera?